everyone, this is Phil here from Northern Wild Harvest. I am out here with my wife Maddie, and I'm also with Alex today, and we are out in coastal British Columbia looking for rainforest mushrooms again. Hoping to find mostly Yellowfoot chanterelles today. It's pretty nice weather, it's not raining too hard. We've experienced what's called an atmospheric river over the last week here, and in between extreme rain showers and flooding, I've gone out picking a couple times. We're gonna really start switching gears onto pines and Yellowfoot.
That hole that goes down 30 feet straight down.
Any mushrooms in there?
Yeah, look at that.
Oh yeah, some gold chanterelles. Here's some hedgehog mushrooms. This is the smaller of the variety of hedgehog, but they're very nice. Just hard to get large volumes of this type. See the teeth instead of veins or gills. There's a pretty good example of some Yellowfoot, also known as winter chanterelles. All of these ones, I would say, most of these ones on this side are a little small. So I'll just take a couple of the bigger ones and thin it out a little. And then this whole bunch here is ready to take most of it. And we'll leave the rest to grow. So as you can see, we're still a little early here with the Yellowfoot, but we will get some today, even if we're just spinning. That's all right.
Then we can scout. Oh, the lock on this thing, man.
So this forest here is mostly second growth with dominantly hemlock and some Douglas fir with the odd white pine. And you can see the stumps from the first growth. However, there are still some first growth alive. Like here is a first growth western red cedar. Not a big one, but it's definitely first growth. And it's possible that this one is culturally modified, which is where local indigenous would have stripped the cedar bark up this tree and used that for basket weaving and a variety of other things. And the reason I think it's culturally modified is because every red cedar in this forest has the same strip taken out of it, and they're all still alive. Very resilient trees. There's another example right there, and another example right there. Now this can happen to cedars naturally, where one side dies and the tree survives, but when it's this consistent, very likely CMT. Over there is an old growth, first growth Douglas fir tree as well. Thinning the larger ones so they don't rot.
Didn't drink too much enough.
Oh yeah, it looks a little old.
No, it's young, it's just bent.
That probably means it has worms.
It looks like it got kicked over.
Oh yeah. So Yellowfoot chanterelles are ectomycorrhizal, which means they are in association with the host tree, but they really tend to follow the roots of the trees. And in this forest, there's a lot of hemlock. Hemlock really tends to grow and send its roots out through this thick organic layer of decomposing logs and sticks from the previous generation of forest. And you really see that because all these Yellowfoot here, it basically maps out where the tree roots are going, because ectomycorrhizal fungi will form like a sheath around the roots of the trees and follow the roots quite specifically at times. And here's a great example of that. So there's some nice big ones here. Particularly in hemlock forest, you'll see the Yellowfoot like growing right up onto logs. An example of what I'm talking about with hemlock is, if you've ever walked down through where old growth logging has happened in coastal British Columbia, you'll often see big old growth stumps with little hemlocks growing off the top of the stumps. We call those nurse stumps, and the hemlocks will live their entire life just growing out of the top of the stump with their roots going through all that decomposing wood material from the old tree stump. They do that more so than the other coniferous species we have here. And the yellowfoot really show that off. Once you're aware of it, you can really see how the roots are following that decomposed matter with the yellowfoot chanterelles. The reason we harvest in this forest is because it has a very, very thick layer of decomposing wood on the forest floor, which makes it an exceptional yellowfoot patch. Check this out, there's a big hemlock root. Great example of what I'm talking about. This is like a tripwire for me. Probably what happened is it grew when there was more matter, and then that matter settled and the root is now floating. And check this out. So there's roots like this running all through these decomposing logs, and that's what the yellowfoot are associating with. Oh, I see some yellowfoot. So here's another example of what I was referring to with the hemlock roots. You can see it's growing right into this stump off of the main shoot. Now a lot of the time they'll grow off of the top of the log, but just as often they'll grow next to the old log. So what probably happened was a seed lodged itself into the side of this stump as it was decomposing, and it gave it somewhere to germinate.
You don't often see roots growing vertically.
And there's another example there with the root. All right, we got a few yellowfoot there. Maddie's bucket, and my bucket. Nice. Couple of hedgehogs in the mix.
Oh, you guys found some hedgehogs?
Yeah. A few little guys.
So we were driving along that little bridge, and me and Alex both spotted this cauliflower at the same time. Just a little one, but we're gonna grab it. Growing right off the top of the stump. Definitely a nice looking hemlock forest here, but not very many mushrooms overall. All that just for one collie. Okay. Swim through the trees here a bit. How you doing?
Radio check.
Shut up. Radio check. All right, this spot, Maddie and I harvested here like a month ago for golden chanterelles, but this is one of the few spots that has a golden chanterelle patch and a winter chanterelle patch in the same area. But we do have to walk for about 10 or 15 minutes to get into the good spot. So we've brought some extra buckets. Very nice. Look at the nice legs on those. Some people call these yellow legs. Around here, they're usually called yellow foot, but honestly, yellow legs kind of makes more sense. And also winter chanterelles. Chanterelles tubiformis. And they're a whimsical little mushroom with how they grow. but I really enjoy harvesting them. A lot of people don't like harvesting them because they're so small, but I just love how they grow in these nice little lines, and you get a lot of individual fruiting bodies in one day. So here's some western matsutake, pine mushrooms, Tricholoma marillianum. Let's see if they're any good. Now we want these big ones, and normally if you're picking these for a field buyer, you would leave that bit on there. But because I need to check for worms, I can cut them off because we're going to be slicing and drying these. There's a nice button, number 1. And again, I don't need that piece. With how I'm using them, I'm going to be slicing that, and I don't want the dirt in my bucket. Let's check this guy out. That's a button. That's awesome. Nice. Oh. So that's a number 1 button. Again, don't cut this off if you're selling to a field buyer. It's only because I'm drying them and I want to keep my bucket clean. It's all one. I'll hold that up. Very cool. Oh, broke it. Nice. Very nice. And a little tiny ice cream cone. Looks good. And these big number 5s, we'll take a look at them, but probably too wormy. So what we'll do with these, I'll show you. See, that's totally unusable. But what we can do is spread them around. There's already spore all over this hill here, so I might as well get these over to another tree and hope that they spread spore a bit. Here is an admirable bolete, velvet top, often called Admiral boletes by accident. Very, very common mistake. And this one is not wormy, but it's pretty wet. So what I'll probably end up doing is removing all of this material from the mushroom. And yeah, I don't see any worm lines in there because it just wouldn't dry very nicely. And even if it did, the texture would be horrible, rehydrated. So by removing that, there's still some nice product there. So this here is a western varnish conk, also known as western reishi. It's a wild reishi, and it has, when they're like this,
it's waxy.
Yeah, if you rub off some of the spore that's on top there, you'll see it looks like a varnished boot. Very medicinal mushroom, fungi. It's a polypore, it grows off of wood. And when they have spore all over them like this, that's the most sustainable time to harvest them because they'll have already spread all that spore to the surrounding area. So we're gonna keep this and cut it up later, see how it is. This tree here is unfortunately dead. The top is completely missing, but this would have been an enormous hemlock. Look at the size of it. And it even has a hollow inside, which you don't see very often on hemlocks. This is like an ancient hemlock tree, or it was. And there's all kinds of fungi around it. I'm not even sure what the heck that thing is there. There's a few older reishi. See, this one's been eaten. This guy here is no good. I could take this little guy. I'll grab that little one, but and then there's also some other fungus growing. And yeah, just abundant with different mushrooms. Look at this reishi right here. It almost looks like an artist conch on top with that color, but it is a reishi. Let me just get some wet moss to see. Nice. Pretty prime looking admirable bolete here growing out of this stump. No worms. Wow. Nice Western Reishi. Nice line here. Maddie's picking over there. And I picked this exact line last year in last fall's videos. And there's definitely more this time. So it's a better season. Nice big one. Here's a nice bed. Some really good looking beds here. Often where the hillside starts to meet rock bluffs, like up there, along that transition, will often be really good for yellowfoot chanterelles. Yeah, so there's some really nice beds in here. Lots of babies starting. They just go off in every direction like that. We're just here a little too early for most of these. That's the perfect stage in my opinion. These were not here last year. Pine mushrooms. Now the number 5 here is definitely wormy, but there is a button and we'll check it, but I bet you it's wormy too. Oh, look at that. Oh, it might be good. That's a nice number 1. Let's take out the 5. We'll spread it like we normally do. And we'll check for more buttons. Really offset flush this year though, where there's like the earlier flush. It's starting to go bad in some places. And then there's so many that have just come up in the last week that aren't ready yet. But you do get some that are like that, and those are gorgeous. Oh, no mushroom in there. Admirable. Ooh.
Sun's shining. You can see Phil through those trees way up there. Look at this. Look at this tree. Stump into 3.
Okay, we've actually done quite well here. I almost finished my bucket. Maddie got more than half of a good bucket there. Alex did the same, plus the bucket of reishi and pines. And as you saw, the majority of the mushrooms were too small to take. So considering we're just skimming through, pretty happy with that. Beautiful mushrooms, beautiful forest. 3 baskets of chanterelles, mostly yellowfoot, winter chanterelles, 1 basket of mixed mushrooms. Pretty good. On to the next spot. Alright, we are just heading back out down these logging roads. It's quite a drive to get out of here. And we might check one more spot, but we're going to see how we're doing for time. Whoa! Pretty nice old second growth hemlock forest. This is Yellowfoot. See how it has veins, and see how they join the stipe, and it has hollow stem. This is a false winter chanterelle, or one of the ones that could be confused. Pretty similar from above, relatively similar. Also has that orange stem, but it has much more defined gills, and the stem is not hollow. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna check this upper ledge up here, see if there's any pine mushrooms or yellowfoot, and if not, then we'll move on. There's a large section of forest in and around this area we've never looked at. This is part of it, but all of it sort of butts up to these large cliff bluffs that are up the hill, and it's hard to tell from satellite just how much of it is actually like traversable with a packboard or a bucket. And those are old growth hemlocks. It's pretty rare to see hemlock trees with a buttress like this, and as we've been showing today, common to see reishi, western varnish conk, growing off of them.
This thing sounds pretty hollow.
Like an old boot. Wow. It's a good one.
It even feels like leather.
Little one there. There's got to be like half a dozen reishi up on the top of this tree. We did manage to get 3/4 of a bucket, so not bad. But we're gonna call it a day. We're gonna head back and get these mushrooms drying. Okay, we are back at the drying Quonset. We're gonna weigh up our mushrooms and then get them drying. Partial basket there, that's 8.65. That one is 12.11. Last harvest, we were battling that atmospheric river, and I didn't film it, but it was pretty soggy wet out there. So today we were just we were working hard, but taking our time a little bit more and enjoying ourselves. 12 pounds on that one. And that one is 10.45. So a total of 63.81 pounds. I'm gonna cut up these pines now. Now these are gorgeous. Let's look at these. I just cleaned these off. We've had a really bad problem with worms this year. When we say a mushroom is wormy, the severity of that can vary quite a bit. I do my best to not put anything wormy into the dryers, but sometimes it's really severe. We're gonna check all of these and see how our recovery is. This one to start. Not wormy. Excellent. Sometimes the worms will start part way up the stem or in the cap. Sometimes they'll start from the ground and move their way up the stem. And when you cut there, because I'm drying these, I can slice them how I want, and I know how they fit best in the packages. That's usually the best place for me to cut it to check if there's bad worms, because it's partially stem and right where it meets the cap. We'll slice these into 1/4 inch, like that, so you can see there, that piece did have some worms. We'll cut that out, and sometimes you can salvage a little bit. So this piece here is good. So this was a number 4, bordering on 5, and it is free of worms. So maybe that new flush, that fall flush, is looking good. This one I'll keep whole because of the length of the stem. it'll have a nice looking shape. But as you can see, the stem ended up being wormy and the cap isn't wormy. So I'll separate that there in the end. Wormy. Amazing. Dried buttons. Look at that. Of course, I saved the big one for last. I did notice some potential for worms down here, but it might not have gone into the stem. So we're going to find out right now. Yeah, so that's worm sign right there. Cut down a little further. Looks good there. They came up this side of the stem. The rest of that's clear. So they probably came up most of the way. Yeah, to about there. And so we'll just carve at it like this. And now the rest of that mushroom should be good. That's pretty good. These, I will take more of a slow dry approach to these, and I'm not in a hurry to dry them. There's not much of a risk of them going bad anytime soon. And that concludes today's episode. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like and subscribe to see more content. You can also find all of our prior mushroom seasons in the playlist tab on the homepage of our YouTube. And if you'd like to support us further, you can find our online shop in the description of the video or also on the homepage of our channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.